Intro here of eye tracking. I'm going to show you the world's first gaze-enabled laptop, the MSI GT72. I'm going to show you Windows Hello login, controlling your Windows device with your eyes. I'm also going to show you a couple of games. So I'm going to show you Assassin's Creed Syndicate with eye tracking and a mod for Grand Theft Auto 5. First thing we'll show is just the login with Windows Hello, and that's actually it. I just looked at the device and I logged in. I can do it one more time, so I lock the device. Now if I just look it and press the spacebar, boom, and I'm logged in. So then the next thing I'm going to show you is how you can control your computer with your eyes. So this is Tobii software, so I'm doing Alt-Tab here, the normal Alt-Tab, and if you see, if I'm just looking at the different icons, they are now highlighted with my eyes, and I select whatever I'm looking at. So I just do Alt-Tab as normal, and then I look at the icon that I want to select, and then I go there. So let's go back to the screen. I also have a feature which is mouse pointing. So if I look at the recycle bin there, and I just place my finger on the touchpad, my mouse cursor will jump there. If I look at Google Chrome, I'll look at the icon, place my mouse cursor, and there we go. I'll look at Assassin's Creed, again. I'll look at GTA 5, recycle bin, Chrome. So again, this removes the need to scroll around on the touchpad. So this is on the Tobii iX webpage. So I look at products, I place my finger on the touchpad, I go there, I make a small adjustment, I release, and then I select. I look at support, place my finger on the touchpad, it goes there automatically, release, and I touched, and I go there. So I no longer need to use my touchpad to select. I can only look at the thing knows that I'm looking at it, and I press a button and I select it.
There's a naked man in front of the Miami Herald building next to the highway. He's throwing his clothes on the highway.
Is he on a pole or?
He was next to a pole actually. He was taking his clothes off and throwing them into traffic. Black male, curly hair, Rastafarian hair, goatee. Can't miss him. He's naked.
Hello, Northeast 13th Street and North Bayshore Drive. On the sidewalk, you know, the causeway, MacArthur, there's that bike lane sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's these two bums who are going at it with each other, taking up the whole lane. I think they're fighting or something.
Listen, there's a naked man on the MacArthur Causeway, at the end of the causeway coming towards Biscayne Boulevard. He is beating another man to a pulp, like on top of the man, beating him. The man is bleeding.
Somebody's beating on him? He's been beaten?
I'm a bus driver. I passed by and I saw what was happening. I pulled over.
I'm not talking to my dispatcher. Okay.
Okay, so it's on.
Okay, he's been beaten, you said?
He's beating another man. It's a naked man beating another man. I mean, beating him.
Beating another man.
Yeah, on the MacArthur Causeway, like towards the Miami Herald, is at the end of the causeway. But he's going to kill that man, I promise you.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Ma'am, you're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Swar owns the Turner Hill Equestrian Stables, where she installed security cameras to protect the equipment and the 22 horses inside.
I did get an alarm set off by my security system that I did have a break-in.
After getting the alert around 4:30 Thursday morning, she checked the cameras, seeing a man inside the stable abusing one of the horses in a sexual manner.
I felt violated. I felt lost. I felt scared.
You can see the man wearing a blue sweatshirt. Swar says he knew how to handle horses.
Someone who's familiar, someone with horses, someone perhaps in the business was savvy enough to get into the barn.
She says the man was gone by the time anyone could get to the stables.
To see that someone would come into my own home and degrade a positive environment left me feeling violated. This is Miss Bell.
DNA was collected from the mare and is being processed. As police investigate, Swar is sending a message to her community, saying she wants this man caught.
I have friends in this town. I have made friends with neighbors, and this could have happened to anybody.
To do testing on unwitting Americans. As one CIA document says, such testing would be operationally realistic. A former CIA official who worked on these programs describes for the first time how the decision was made. He did not wish to be filmed or recorded. Thus his remarks are read by someone else.
I think every last one of us felt sorry to attempt this kind of thing. We knew we were crossing the line. Every decent kid knows he shouldn't steal, but he does it sometimes. We knew damn well we didn't want anyone else to know what we were doing.
The decision was made to do testing on unwitting victims. It was decided they should be on the fringes of society because they were most vulnerable.
It was the borderline underworld, prostitutes, drug addicts, and other small-timers who would be powerless to seek any kind of revenge in case they found out.
And as their predecessors had a decade earlier, the CIA turned to George White for help. White was now a high-ranking narcotics official, and by this time, the stories about George White were legendary.
And teach these guys a lesson.
Charles Siragusa, a former narcotics officer and friend of White's.
He'll come around, he says, and break your kneecaps. And with that, one guy laughed, and George would always have little Billy with him. And this one guy sort of naked. George White turned around and whapped him across the neck with it. Then he picked up a pool stick and started beating everybody up.
He made his point.
And he made his point.
George White was not a man of understatement or subtleties. His boss at OSS, Stanley Lovell, referred to him as deadly and dedicated. In this note from White's diaries, it says, "Call Lovell regarding TD." TD was a rather transparent cover for Truth Drug. George White worked with the Truth Drug Committee here at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in the nation's capital. They experimented with mescaline, scopolamine, and marijuana on unwitting victims.
Senator Wyden is the chairman of the Finance Committee, and Senator Booker, one of the foremost champions for justice and equity here in the Senate. We are all joining together to release draft legislation to end the federal prohibition on cannabis. This is monumental because at long last, we are taking steps in the Senate to right the wrongs of the failed war on drugs. I was the first Democratic leader to come out for the legalization of marijuana, and I will use my clout as majority leader to make this a priority.
From one of the progress reports, a report of a woman who had electrodes implanted in the brain and was then given LSD and other drugs. She became agitated, cried, lapsed into a trance-like state. Felt as if she were about to have a convulsion, experienced waves of darkness and light, had bizarre sensations in her neck and legs, said somebody was trying to manipulate her body. At this point, Dr. Monroe wrote that the woman was obviously having paranoid ideas. As a layperson, perhaps you can enlighten me. What therapeutic effect would the type of experiment that I just described have on a patient?
Well, the therapeutic effect would be indirect.
Was this patient aware that she was being given LSD?
Yes, I mean, they were told that they would be given some medication, and they took it
Specifically LSD?
Well, we told them, I don't think that they would have even known what LSD was then at the time. They were told that they were going to they would be given some medications which might make them feel worse.
Dr. Monroe, what do you think the Army Chemical Corps was looking for in all of this testing?
They were looking for an incapacitating agent, an agent that would not harm the person permanently, but would incapacitate them temporarily. That seemed like a humanistic way to wage a war, if war is necessary.
When James Thornwell was given LSD by Army intelligence in 1961, this time it was no experiment. This time, the express purpose was to peel back Thornwell's brain to bear any secret within it. This time, the Army had gone operational. Thornwell, as reported on ABC last January, was an Army private stationed in Orléans, France. Classified documents were missing from his unit. Thornwell became a suspect. His 2.5-month interrogation included administration of sodium pentothal, hypnosis, isolation, and deprivation of sleep. Army documents obtained by ABC News refer to this interrogation as conventional. Despite the severe questioning, Army intelligence was getting nowhere with Thornwell, and it was decided to slip him LSD. For 16 years, Thornwell never knew what had hit him. Tell me about the acid.
I'd rather not. It's a bad trip. It's a bad trip. That was a bad trip. The pain was so excruciating. Felt like somebody was sticking me with 1,000,000 pins. You know, just everywhere. Oh, it just... Oh.
You want to stop for a minute?
I walked around.
You want to stop?
Oh, I can talk. I lived through it. I lived through it. I lived through it.
No charges were ever brought by the Army against Thornwell. He was discharged for psychological disorders. But an Army psychiatric evaluation of Thornwell obtained by ABC News, one which was done prior to Thornwell having been given LSD, says of him, fairly cooperative, oriented, alert, and gave no evidence of psychosis or depression. From the Army's point of view, this type of LSD interrogation was a success.
But the big issue was testing. And we've been talking about testing, tracing, and then isolating. And that is going to be the key going forward. That's how you are educated and have some data points as you're working your way through this reopening calibration, right? How does it work? You test the person. If the person winds up positive, you then trace that person's contacts, contact tracing. You have to start with a large number of tests, and we set as a goal yesterday to double the number of state tests to go from 20,000 on average to 40,000. That is just about the maximum capacity for all of the laboratory machines in the state. Okay, we have private labs, about 300 of them, that we regulate. They have purchased machines over time. These are very expensive machines. If you took every machine we had and they had all the supplies they needed from the national manufacturers, and you ran that machine 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, how many tests could you do? About 40,000. So that's, if you put your foot to the floor, you brought the engine up to maximum RPM, up to the red line, you brought it up to 6,000, assuming the red line was 6,000, and you held it there 7 days, 24 hours a day, at red line, how many tests could you do? 40,000. Now, there's a lot of buts and ifs in there, but the machine has to stay together for 7 days, 24 hours a day. You have to have enough people feeding the machine, but that is our maximum potential. So where did we set the goal? At our maximum potential. Why? Because we need to. Well, it's unrealistic. It might be a little unrealistic, but I'd rather set the bar high and try to get there, and then whatever we get is what we get. But once you do all those tests, every positive you have to go back and trace. And the tracing is a very big, big deal. Once you trace and you find more positives, then you isolate the positives. They're under quarantine, they can't go out, they can't infect anybody else. This entire operation has never been done before. So it's intimidating.